The COVID-19 crisis has shown us that our old systems are not fit anymore for the 21st century. Now is the historical moment, the time, not only to fight severe virus, but to shape the system. We can build a new social contract. In short, we need a great reset. For this reason, I'm grateful that we are joined for this announcement of the Great Reset Initiative. The Great Reset Initiative.
And that's just the way it is. We've got to accept that this is the new world order. We've got to accept that this is the new world order. This is the new world order.
Today is the first full day of the new world order. The new world order. The new world order. It is a big idea. A new world order. New world order.
I want to be straight with you. There will be no return to the old normal for the foreseeable future. I repeat, there will be no return to the old normal for the foreseeable future. A vaccine on its own will not end the pandemic. Surveillance will need to continue. Contacts will still need to be traced and quarantined.
So people assume we are just going back to the good old world which we had, and everything will be normal again in how we are used to normal, in the old fashion. This is, let's say, fiction. It will not happen.
So the World Economic Forum and Klaus Schwab, and he's more of a face man, more of a front man for the organization, but he's the one making the press releases and getting all of the attention. But today, I want to focus on another person from the World Economic Forum. For whatever reason, his face isn't nearly as recognizable to the masses. They're more likely to know somebody like Klaus Schwab than to recognize this man. And if you don't know who this man is, this is Larry Fink, aka Lawrence D. Fink of the World Economic Forum Board of Trustees. He is also the CEO, the Chief Executive Officer, and founder of BlackRock. And of course, the Council on Foreign Relations. Oh, and look, a University School of Economics and Management in Beijing, China. So here's his big bio over on the World Economic Forum if you want to read it, but this is nothing. All of that giant list of titles and accolades is literally nothing compared to what he has his hands in, what he actually controls. Not just he has, an influence in, but he has a controlling influence in. Okay, so let's start with BlackRock. In 1988, he founded BlackRock. Just think about that. 1988? BlackRock just started in 1988. When you see everything they have taken over, it will amaze you that they are not a very old company at all. They just happen to be created in 1988, which just happens to be the very same year that the director of the CIA, Herbert Walker Bush, took over the presidency of the United States.
It is a big idea. A new world order.
In 1988, he founded BlackRock. And they say, a global leader in investment and technology solutions. Yeah, a global leader for sure. Okay, so a lot of people, though, don't know that much about BlackRock. So I'm going to play a little clip from a super awesome video made by a Dutch creator. And I can't say her channel name here for obvious reasons, because this right here that's highlighted on the screen is her channel name. So I'm not going to say that, but what I will do is put a link down below in the description box to an article that has an English translation of the full video. Then, in an effort to avoid talk about the COVID, I'm just going to play a couple of minutes clip just to kick this off with a little bit of a refresher about who Larry Fink of BlackRock and Larry Fink of the World Economic Forum, who he actually is and what his BlackRock company controls. Or it might be easier to make a video about what they don't control. That'd only take like 30 seconds.
Dear fellow human, I think by now you're sensing that something does not seem right. But I also think that poorly argumented conspiracy theories have caused you to stay far from the fear-mongering media and conspiracy theorists alike. But please listen, because as you're watching, millions fall into poverty because of the corona measures of the past year. Even if the greatest economic crisis in history has not affected you yet, it will only be a matter of time until the rippling effects will hit you as well. This is not fear-mongering, but it's a harsh reality. Less than a handful of big corporations dominate every aspect of our lives. That may seem exaggerated, but from the breakfast we eat to the mattress we sleep on and everything we wear and consume in between is largely dependent on these corporations. They are the main characters of the play that we are witnessing. I know your time is valuable, so I summarized the most important data. How does it work? Let's take PepsiCo as an example. It is the parent company of many soda companies and snack companies. The so-called competitive brands are from factories from a few corporations who monopolize the entire industry. In the packaged food industry, there are a few big companies like Unilever, the Coca-Cola company, Mondelez and Nestlé. In the picture you see that most brands in the food industry belong to one of these corporations. The big companies are on the stock market and have the big shareholders in the board of directors. On sources like Yahoo Finance, we can see detailed company info, such as who the biggest shareholders actually are. Let's take PepsiCo again as an example. We see about 72% of stock is owned by no less than 3,155 institutional investors. These are investment companies, investment funds, insurance companies, banks, and in some cases governments. Who are the biggest institutional investors of PepsiCo? The top 10 of investors together amount to a value of $59 billion. But out of those 10, only 3 own more stock than the other 7. Let's remember them and look up who owns the most stocks of the Coca-Cola company, the biggest competitor of Pepsi. Now let's look at the 4 biggest stock owners. They are BlackRock, Vanguard and State Street. These are the world's biggest investment firms, so PepsiCo and Coca-Cola are not competitors at all. The other big companies that own a myriad of brand names like Unilever, Mondelez and Nestlé are from the same small group of investors. But it's not only in the food industry that their names come up. Let's find out on Wikipedia which are the biggest tech companies. Facebook is the owner of WhatsApp and Instagram. Together with Twitter, they form the most popular social media platforms. Alphabet is the parent of all Google companies like YouTube and Gmail. But they are also the biggest investor in Android, one of the 2 operating systems for nearly all smartphones and tablets. The other operating system is Apple's iOS. If we add Microsoft to the above 3, we see 4 companies making the software for nearly all computers, tablets and smartphones in the world. Let's see who are the biggest shareholders of these companies. Take Facebook. We see that 80% of the stock is owned by institutional investors. These are the same names that came up in the food industry. The same investors are in the top 3. Next is Twitter. It forms with Facebook and Instagram the top 3. Surprisingly, this company is in the hands of the same investors as well. We see them again with Apple and even with their biggest competitor, Microsoft. Also, if we look at other big companies in the tech industry that develop and make our computers, TVs, phones and home appliances, we see the same big investors that together own the majority of the stock. It's true for all industries, I'm not exaggerating. Whether we look at the world's biggest solar panel companies or oil refineries, the stocks are in the hands of the same companies. But they also own all big pharmaceutical companies and the scientific institutions that produce medicine.
You know, our Congress and stuff are focused on, oh, should we break up the monopoly of these social media companies that are controlling free speech? And it's like the monopoly is well above them on the pyramid. BlackRock and Vanguard control all of these. So is it any wonder that when we see such intense censorship, and they also control, oh, look at these companies. These involved in anything going on right now? Johnson & Johnson, Moderna, AstraZeneca, Pfizer. Yeah, all primarily owned by BlackRock and Vanguard and a handful of others. But the point is, it's the same investors who own and control these companies. So is it any wonder that this arm of their big mega conglomerate, I'm going to say it, New World Order?
What I'm about to say is fact. The secret organizations of the world power elite are no longer secret. They have planned and are now leading us into a one world communist government, brought on you by our own government.
Lead in shaping a new world order for the 21st century.
And Vanguard is private, so that's very interesting that we don't have access to that information. Who are these people controlling the industries? I mean, at least BlackRock, we can see they're open. They're running the World Economic Forum, the world economy. When Klaus Schwab says this is the fourth industrial revolution, he literally means that they own the industries. It's industrial.
That our old systems are not fit anymore for the 21st century.
A new world order for the 21st century.
And we can make sure that the technologies of the fourth industrial revolution are best utilized to provide us with better lives.
And when he says, quote, provide us with better lives, I think he's speaking literally. Like him and the board of trustees, BlackRock, who runs the World Economic Forum, it's their serf and lord system. They want to own everything, literally own everything. Remember, that's what they tell us. We'll own nothing and be happy.
It's not a lot, is it? And most of us, I know there are some guys here that really love to own a drill. But for the rest of us, we just want a hole in a wall, right? And I think we're going to a place where we just want mobility, where we don't care so much about owning a car. It's actually a little bit of trouble. If you just come to driverless car and pick me up and I can drive around and this car will be driving all the time. So I think we are moving to this, and also because of information technology, it's now possible to share things in a much more intelligent way, where we don't feel all the time that this is something that we cannot trust, or something that is a little bit dirty, or something that, I mean, car share for a long time was a problem because people left stuff in the cars and was a little bit disgusting. But now, you rate people, so you don't leave stuff in the car, you just behave better.
Oh yeah, that sounds like utopia, all right. Yeah, not only do we not get to own anything, but it'll be okay because we'll rate people with social credit scores so they behave better to take care of the one thing that we have to share. So yeah, not only do they get to own everything and we get to own nothing, but they're going to make it utopia by rating us with a social credit score. And then all of their industries in the military-industrial complex will set up these wonderful KGB snitch programs. Like Facebook's new family-friendly program where you're supposed to watch your friends and neighbors and report them to BlackRock. I mean, the Black Sun. To Facebook. But if BlackRock can't re-educate them, Facebook can't put them in touch with counselors or whatever, then the next step in the snitch program is right here. The FBI just tweeted, right, yesterday or the day before, that we need to report our family members and peers. So this is obviously utopia. They've got it all figured out. We'll have a surveillance society. We'll rate one another. We'll turn each other in. We'll turn on our own family and friends. We won't be allowed to own anything. Instead, we'll just all be super poor and we'll have like one item and we'll all share it. It'll be freaking fantastic. And all of this brings us all the way back around to the Titan Point series. And this is a puzzle piece that snaps right into place with that information when we were talking about these huge megalithic stone windowless skyscrapers that house the supercomputers, the quantum computers, and the entire communications network that the NSA uses to surveil all of us. But as we pointed out, almost all of those buildings are actually owned by AT&T. So I will give you one guess who the primary stockholders, the owners of AT&T are. Surprise, surprise. It's the same exact top three. Almost every single industry in the entire world. Like I said, that documentary that I posted a few minutes of, that's a Dutch creator. She's talking about what's going on in her country and every other country. But here in the United States, it's exactly the same. Another thing that she eloquently pointed out in the video is that it's not just, say, the parent companies that BlackRock and these other groups are controlling in these industries. Then when you break them down, like when you go into AT&T, we had talked about in that series how AT&T owns Time Warner, and then in turn Time Warner owns all of these other different networks. So you might think that you're getting lots of different points of view from all these channels, but it's really just one point of view. They're putting it in a different language. If you like true crime or cartoons for children or Adult Swim, or you want something vulgar, or of course they own CNN News and HBO if you want to watch it in movie form, but it's all their message. Well, how she points out that you go above AT&T, above Time Warner, above AT&T, and you'll see that BlackRock and these other groups, they own them all. So when we've cited this graph in multiple videos before, now we're going up the ladder one rung, up the pyramid one rung, to say that we always say, well, a handful of people are controlling all of our information, our entire reality, what we know to be reality. We always say a handful of these companies control all of that. But what I want to point out starting today is that it's not a handful, it's one. BlackRock is controlling all of these. And of course, Vanguard, that we don't have any way of knowing who they are. It could be the same exact people. We don't know. It's not public record. But suffice it to say that when we get done with this line of thought, there will be somebody, we'll find out, God will reveal who's above BlackRock and Vanguard. I mean, we know it's the Antichrist, but he will reveal the identity as we move forward in this revelation, the revealing of all things hidden.
They say that about 90% of the international media is owned by 9 media conglomerates. Whether we take the monopolists Netflix and Amazon Prime, or enormous concerns that own many daughter companies like Time Warner, the Walt Disney Company, Comcast, Fox Corporations, Bertelsmann and Viacom CBS, we see that the same names own the stocks. These corporations not only make all the programs, movies and documentaries, but also own the channels on which those are broadcast. They own the companies that build our electronics, they own the big warehouses and online markets, and even the means of payment we use to buy their products. To make this video as short as possible, I only showed you the tip of the iceberg. If you decide to research this with the sources I just showed you, then you will see that most popular insurance companies, banks, construction companies, telephone companies, restaurant chains and cosmetics are owned by the same institutional investors we have just seen. A Bloomberg report states that both these companies in the year 2028 together will have investments in the amount of $20 trillion. That means that they will own almost anything. Bloomberg calls BlackRock the fourth branch of government because it's the only private agency that closely works with the central banks. BlackRock lends money to the central bank, but it's also the advisor. It also developed the software the central bank uses. Many BlackRock employees were in the White House with Bush and Obama. Its CEO Larry Fink can count on a warm welcome from leaders and politicians. Not so strange if you know that he is the frontman of the ruling company.
Okay, now back to AT&T, the parent company of CNN News Network and, Time Warner and all of that. Now go down to, if you go to like Wikipedia to their page, go down to criticisms and controversies. Obviously, we've gone through the privacy stuff and all of that, but click on censorship. Now, in light of what we've been talking about here, with BlackRock having a controlling interest in all the social media companies, Twitter, Facebook, YouTube, Google, all of it, and we have seen firsthand that they have taken off the mask and they have just begun censoring and removing political dissidents, people who will not go along to get along. Now, AT&T, if you go all the way back to 2007, in fact, if you watched that Titan Point series or the Clash of the Titans series, even the smaller in-between videos, I showed in there clips of people who were saying they'd take like their phone and their husband's phone, right, side by side, and they'd text themselves, they'd text their husband, they'd show how that someone was censoring messages from their AT&T or Verizon, their phone companies, right? That they were sending a message to their husband and the links, it was breaking links and stuff. So someone was interfering with those messages. And I bring that up this week because you can see right here's a news article. This is from July 12th, that this is all the rage right now with the newly installed regime here in America, that they are saying, oh, well, we have to ask the phone carriers to intervene and to vet anti-vax messages. Like seriously, they want to get even in our phone calls and text messages and decide what we can and can't say to each other. It's not good enough that they can control what we can and can't say to each other on social media platforms. No, they want to get right in our phones and make sure that we can't speak to each other. And then they want to make sure that we can't gather in person more than 3 people. Again, in that Titan Point series, I went all the way through the Arab Spring and how they did the same thing when they took over these other countries. And it had nothing to do with VAX or COVID, but they banned gatherings. And we're seeing the same thing in Cuba right now, right? When people are rising up against the Marxist, the communist Cuban government, what do? They shut off the internet. They shut off the phone services. And we've seen the same thing beginning to bloom over here. It's not in full fruition yet, but we have seen them start to cut services. These BlackRock owned banks and all of that, they will close people's bank accounts. They will kick them off of the social media platforms, completely deperson people. Like Owen Benjamin or Alex Jones, those were the first ones that whether you like them or you don't, it's setting the precedent that they will cut you off from all of their services, and eventually it will be everything. Like the Bible says, you won't even be allowed to buy or sell without the mark of the beast. And we're already seeing the beginning of that with the passports, that you won't be allowed to partake in society unless you bow your knee. But as far as them asking the phone companies to intervene in our speech to one another through our phones, AT&T has a long history of this. They got caught already back in 2007 when someone reviewed their legal policy. In September of 2007, AT&T changed its legal policy to state that, quote, AT&T may immediately terminate or suspend all or a portion of your service. Any member ID, electronic mail address, IP address, universal resource locator, or domain name used by you without notice for conduct that AT&T believes blah 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 tends to damage the name or reputation of AT&T or its parents or affiliates. So if you speak out against the regime, against AT&T or its parent company BlackRock, basically. Its affiliates, BlackRock and these others. I mean, this is the rise of the beast system right here, guys. So they've been long engaged in this. This is 2007, and we've seen them using the tech companies to rise up, and then recently was the new iteration with President Trump, and they even removed Parler. And even more recently, the frontline doctors, their entire website was removed. Doctors, thousands of doctors, they've decided we don't get a second opinion. They have their talking head. They assigned us a doctor. We're not allowed to speak to other doctors. Probably just a coincidence, right? That those thousands of doctors just happen to be speaking out against products or companies that BlackRock is heavily invested in, like Moderna, AstraZeneca, Johnson & Johnson, and Pfizer. I'm sure it's all just big misunderstanding. I'm probably just a conspiracy theorist. Again, domain names, they'll take you down. They will take your IP address, they'll delete your email address, which now is linked to everything we do. That's who they believe they are. That's the control that they seek to have. And it's happening. It's happening in our lifetime. We're witnessing the unfolding of this thing. They're rolling out the red carpet for the Antichrist. And people better wake up. I know they don't want to take it that far. I know they don't want to believe that. They believe, oh, things are bad and things are going to get better. They tell you things aren't going to get better.
And everything will be normal again in how we are used to normal, in the old fashion. This is, let's say, fiction. It will not happen.
I want to be straight with you. There will be no return to the old normal for the foreseeable future.
I just played you all those clips in the beginning. It doesn't matter how many injections you take. They're not going to let you go. This is the serf and lord system that they have spent generations building. Okay, I want to close out this video. I wanted this to be one of those short in-between ones. So I'm going to close out this video with a few clips from This is John Williams' channel. He's obviously personal finance, business, and real estate. And he does a great job of explaining a lot of this legislation that we are seeing passed all around the United States right now in the serf and lord system, for them to get us out of owning anything and they own it all. They have a strategy in place. They have contingency plans in place. If we make this move, they make that move. Like they've got it all mapped out. And you have to admit, it's been playing out like down to the year. It's ID 2020, right? And then all of a sudden, out of nowhere, out of the blue, we're hit with this thing in 2020 where they shut down all the businesses. And now all of a sudden, everybody's got to have papers, please, right? Everybody's got to have their papers to move about freely. Now it's moving into this ID, and all of it launched in 2020. Then we have Agenda 21. Now we're moving into take away all private property rights, and it's all owned by the state, the deep state, the world government, the new world order. They own everything and we're just the serfs. So we get to tend to their businesses, the factories all over. We get to work in their cubicles and factories and do all of that sort of thing, and they get to own everything. It's utopia, right? Like I said, they say it openly. By 2028, they assume BlackRock and Vanguard will own like everything. And what's Agenda 2030? They've moved it back to the new Internet of Living Things, right? Hence the constant push forward, the steady march forward to get everybody injected. They're already going door to door. And yes, this is still voluntary and all of that, but you know how it goes. You know what the next step will be, and then the next step.
Into a health district, teams are going door to door to tell people about vaccination clinics and answer questions. One group was in University today, and our Bruce Young was there to see.
It may have been raining, but these folks were still out going door to door.
We were able to get a community with flyers and knocking on doors, talking to people.
This is FEMA right here. FEMA, Don't let that escape you. Everything we've been saying all of these years. FEMA, right there, going door to door. And don't let these news clips about them saying they're just distributing information fool you. They're actually injecting people door to door.
COVID vaccine could be coming right to your doorstep. Starting today, the Mecklenburg County Health Department launched a new Doses to Doors program. Health department workers giving out shots right there at your front door. This is part of an urgent push to make getting vaccinated easy. And we can tell you this new program started this morning in West Charlotte. We knew a few people who took advantage of it. WCNC Charlotte's Chloe Leschner explains how this first day went.
There are many different reasons why half of the population in Mecklenburg County still hasn't been vaccinated.
No, I haven't been vaccinated yet because I didn't have the convenience to get around to getting there.
All it took for this West Charlotte man to roll up his sleeve was the health department and medical director, Dr. Meg Sullivan, bringing it directly to his door.
Which reminds me of this video right here at the top of my website, Operation Dark Winter video. Remember in that one, at the end of that, and I talked about that vision that I had. It was a series of visions, and they're still up on my YouTube channel from years and years ago, long before the COVID or any of this. And anybody who doesn't believe in God and doesn't believe in prophecy and these dreams and visions, go back and watch them and look at the timestamps, how many years ago it was. But anyway, I put the clips of them at the end of this Operation Dark Winter video. And what did I see? People going door to door. And I grabbed my little child and ran to the back of the house and said, do not answer the door. Do not answer the door. We were scared that they were going to make us do something. And later on in the vision, I talked about using the phone and the internet, and that it was beyond social credit score. We were not allowed to visit certain sites, and we were not allowed to use our phones for activities that were not approved. And at that point, we were locked down in the city. They had roadblocks. We weren't allowed to visit other territories, other cities or states without our papers or something. And so I had used my phone to try and get a call out down south to my parents to let them know that we were okay and make sure they were okay. And they came and arrested me and my family and took us away. So anyway, that vision's in there. So in light of what we're talking about here, with them wanting the phone carriers to vet our anti-VAX messages, and all of that in conjunction with sending people door to door with BlackRock's pharmaceutical injections, man, I don't know how to reason with you if you can't see that God is real. God warned us about this. He warned me personally about it. And every single thing that is time-stamped and documented that he showed me is coming to pass right now. Okay, anyway, back to another one of their tentacles and the end of all private property. I want to play you a couple of clips from John's channel.
Hey, what's up guys? John here. Big banks are staffing up right now to get ready to handle the amount of foreclosures that are coming. They're predicting about 15,000 a day they're going to start working on. Over 7.25 million homeowners in America have filed for forbearance. So you think about how many homeowners are struggling financially right now. They're one payment away from having to go into a situation like that. This isn't just the people that have been impacted so far. There's millions and millions and millions of others that are on the sidelines, also in deep, deep pain. In this video, I'm going to break down exactly what we can expect for the housing market, but more importantly than that, my solution to stopping this madness that's going to happen, which I think is going to be BlackRock, a lot of these corporations just foaming at the mouth, excited and anxious for the opportunity to just strip away the American dream and buy homes by the tens and 20,000, 50,000 blocks at a time. I think what's going to happen is these big banks are going to say, hey, I got 50,000 homes in Florida. If I list them for sale like I did in 2008, I'm gonna have to spend 5 or 6% on agent fees, management. It's going to be a lot of capital. I might as well just bundle them together and sell them to BlackRock, and they can just get a good deal. I can get a good deal. I can unload them.
And I agree with John. I believe they absolutely will be buying them up. And not just because the banks are like, hey, we can save money and time and just bundle them up and sell them off and be done with it. No, it's because the banks are owned by the same people who are buying the properties. So the people selling the properties and the people buying the properties are both BlackRock. And these aren't just backroom deals. There are governors of these states in all of the Marxist states that they're passing legislation saying that nobody else gets a chance to buy the foreclosures. They get first dibs on all of the foreclosures.
Hey, what's up, guys? John here. Gavin Newsom just destroyed California real estate, obliterated it. It's never going to come back. And I'm being dead serious about this. He just signed into law a new eviction moratorium. But first, Joe Biden signed into law one that just takes you till the end of March. That's how long you're going to have to wait to evict a tenant. But Gavin says, come on, Joe, end of March, that's all you got? I'm going to extend mine till the end of June. What he's doing right now, it's intentional. He's not a dumb guy. He's intentionally setting the system up to where everybody loses everything, and California basically controls the land, it controls the people. Dead serious about this. Look up SB 1079. It's a law that he signed in that took effect January 1st, 2021, that gives California first right of refusal to buy all foreclosures. So what's happening now is high-paying tenants are leaving. Rents are plummeting. I just rented 2 units in LA, dropped 35 to 40% in rental value since the pandemic. 35 to 40%, that's not a small number. That's huge. You take that across the board, you're gonna have so many landlords that just can't afford to keep up with their debt service anymore because rents dropped 35 to 40%. They were buying these buildings at a 5% cash flow. What this means, I'm gonna really simplify it and show you how to appraise a property, because some people on YouTube will take an hour to explain something that could really be explained in 3 minutes. I'm gonna do that in this video and share with you how much damage this man is doing to mom and pop landlords, to business owners, to everybody in the state of California.
Oh, and I can't forget to mention that BlackRock also has decided that it won't allow any of its renters to have guns on their property. And a lot of people might think that that's a new thing because, we're seeing what's going on in the world clearly now. A lot more people are. But you can go back and look, here's 2019. Can landlords ban guns at rentals? And they were already going through the legislative process to make sure that, yes, rental properties are considered private property and they're owned by the landlord. So they're not just snapping up all the single family homes so that nobody else can get ahead in this world. No, they're making sure that once they own them all and we all have to rent from them, that none of their renters can have a gun even for self-protection in their own homes, which of course isn't their own homes because they've decided that everyone else in the world besides them will own nothing and be happy.
A new world order for the 21st century.